This is about something far more sinister. And as we ask ourselves, is this going away? I know we're all thinking, the mask thing in Philadelphia, is it going to reach me here in Texas? Is it? I mean, clearly in Arizona, I'm good, right? Well, if you're going to know your opponent, what do you think that they're trying to go for? Do you think it was really just whether or not you got your COVID vaccine? I've been telling you from the beginning, it's more than that. It's tracking every part of your life, your vital signs. But don't take my word for it. Again, let's look to the World Economic Forum. This is one of the leading voices that has appeared there many times. He celebrates as Yuval Noah Harari. He's a historian, teaches history at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Listen very carefully to his dream of what this is really all about. And ask yourself, do you think this is over?
COVID is critical because this is what convinces people to accept, to legitimize total biometric surveillance. If we want to stop this epidemic, we need not just to monitor people, we need to monitor what's happening under their skin. What we have seen so far, it's corporations and governments collecting data about where we go, who we meet, what movies we watch. The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. We're now seeing mass surveillance systems established even in democratic countries, which previously rejected them. And we also see a change in the nature of surveillance. Previously, surveillance was mainly above the skin. Now it's going under the skin. Governments want to know not just where we go or who we meet. Above all, they want to know what is happening under our skin. What's our body temperature? What's our blood pressure? What is our medical condition? Now humans are developing even bigger powers than ever before. We are really acquiring divine powers of creation and destruction. We are really upgrading humans into gods. We are acquiring, for instance, the power to re-engineer life. I know that in recent years, we saw populist politicians undermining deliberately the trust that people have in important institutions like universities, like respectable media outlets. These populist politicians told people that, say, scientists are this small elite, disconnected from the real people. I mean, all this story about Jesus rising from the dead and being the Son of God, this is fake news. Humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have, you know, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over.
Really? That's over. So free will is gone. We need to all accept where this is going. There's nothing you can do to stop it. If there was any reason why everybody should be standing at any rally you can get to represent humanity right now, this is that time. Just to get a sense of where this guy's coming from, this is just a page, his front page of his website of Yuval Noah Harari. History began when humans invented gods and will end when humans become gods. I have been saying this, so many people have been saying it, you know, transhumanism. We're going to be getting into more of these discussions on the High Wire because it truly is this pipe dream of the billionaires of this world that are attempting to drive and move us where they want us to go, Klaus Schwab. Now, I want you to now think about what he just said. Basically, human beings are under our control. We don't just want to monitor where you're going, what you're doing. We want to monitor under your skin. We want to be taking a check into what is your biorhythms? What is your heartbeat right now? What is your body temperature? Remember, can you imagine now if you're watching a video of the President of the United States who would like to call anyone that disagrees with him a terrorist, which is what is coming out of the Department of Homeland Security, and now all of a sudden you're being monitored. You know, here we go. World Economic Forum founder says Joe Biden will boost multilateralism. He's a part of, you know, this great dream. When we think about it, can you imagine if all of a sudden there is some signal that goes? They know what channel you're watching, of course, and now, well, I'm watching the President of the United States, and I'm getting a really uneasy feeling. In fact, I'm starting to get sick to my stomach. I'm getting a little bit angry, and now somewhere that's being monitored. All of this is possible. That technology exists. This isn't futuristic anymore. So if you think the Silicon Valley is going to suddenly just trash the millions of dollars in research and development that they've had to track you and get under your skin because they were ready to go, and they're just going to go home and go to sleep, I think you have another thing coming. But listen to what he was saying. We want to track under your skin. We want a vaccine passport that gives us. COVID is what sells it. COVID is how we get to you. COVID is what will make you finally give in and let us track every part of the human being, which, by the way, has no matter. You're just a body. Now watch the video we have shown you a bunch of times and ask yourself, if this is what the Great Reset is this the world where I give up my independence, where I am now just a number, where the government of the United States of America, where the government of France, the government of Germany now owns my body? I have been telling you since before any of this, back when I was marching against SB 277 making vax, I was saying they want to own your body. Any vaccine mandate simply says that you are property of the United States government. Step aside, parents, your child is the property of the United States government. We do to it whatever we want. When you start hearing slogans that aren't written here in the United States of America, but written by crazy people like this, coming from the mouth of your leaders, and in this case here in America, the President of the United States, I think it's time to get really nervous. Look at this video through the lens of what we're now talking about.
I see the need for action. I see the need for a great reset.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
History would look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset.
We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path.
The Great Reset.
The Great Reset.
The Great Reset.
Great Reset.
What does the Great Reset look like?
We can't just build back to what it was before. We have to build back better.
This moment also gives us a much greater chance to be radical and to do things differently, to build back better and to build back bolder.
We will build back better from the COVID crisis.
We're going to take an economy that had a lot of problems and we're going to make this economy work better going forward.
We're at the early stages of a sustainability revolution. It's empowered by the IoT and artificial intelligence. It has the magnitude of the Industrial Revolution, but the speed of the digital revolution.
The fourth industrial revolution and automation. The future is coming whether we like it or not, and we have to play catch up as quickly as possible.
When we talk about the Great Reset, it means also how can we do it to make sure that a majority of people are benefiting from it and not just a minority.
We must treat this new world order, this new world of COVID, we must treat this new world of COVID, even in our own homes, with a high level of care and caution.
These are the people who have retreated over the hill after the battle we've just won. They are recollecting in Davos, Switzerland, and in hidden secret meetings all around the world. We know this is happening. They did not achieve the Great Reset yet. Too many of you had brains. Too many of you had blood coursing through your veins. But when you ask yourself, where is this going? What are they thinking about? Remember, to them, you are just a useless eater, a person that stands in the way. Don't take my word for it. One more time, from one of those speakers, that all of those leaders that we trust, they're bowing down to this statement from people like this.
In the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century, what humanity basically learned to produce was all kinds of stuff, like textiles and shoes and weapons and vehicles. And this was enough for very few countries that underwent the revolution fast enough to subjugate everybody else. What we're talking about now is like a second industrial revolution, but the product this time will not be textiles or machines or vehicles or even weapons. The product this time will be humans themselves. We are basically learning to produce bodies and minds. Bodies and minds are going to be, I think, the two main products of the next wave of all these changes. And if there is a gap between those that know to produce bodies and minds and those that do not, then this is far greater than anything we saw before in history. And this time, if you're not part of the revolution fast enough, then you probably become extinct. once you know how to produce bodies and brains and minds, so cheap labor in Africa or South Asia or wherever, it simply counts for nothing. Again, I think that the biggest question maybe in economics and politics of the coming decades will be what to do with all these useless people. I don't think we have an economic model for that. My best guess, which is just a guess, is that food will not be a problem. With that kind of technology, you will be able to produce food to feed everybody. The problem is more boredom and what to do with them, and how will they find some sense of meaning in life when they are basically meaningless, worthless. My best guess at present is a combination of drugs and computer games.
All right. I think we get the point. This is why I think it's time to make sure that we stay focused. We have an opponent now, I think, that represents darkness, and darkness not in a way that they intend to do evil. I don't think, and I've said it from the beginning, I don't believe that the Bill Gates of the world or Yuval or Klaus Schwab are trying to be evil dictators. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in anything bigger than them. And as far as it goes, they don't really even believe in humanity. You're useless. You're a bag of cells that has no value on this planet. If we decide you have no value, we will do whatever we want. And certainly under those circumstances, why not inject those useless people with whatever you want? Why not, go ahead and sterilize them or whatever it takes? That is the view. This is the view being celebrated with world leaders all around the world. That's why when they have a global agenda, they so carefully and so easily came together with the same talking points, locked us all down, took the same approach, even though it was a failure, gave us all the same crappy vaccine, which was a complete failure and has now perhaps robbed us of herd immunity on this planet. We have work to do. It's going to take every one of us getting over ourselves, getting over being nervous to tell the truth, to being nervous to have a conversation. I do this on a screen. I tell the truth as I can see it, and I will continue to do it all the time. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm saying at least have the gumption, at least have the courage to speak your truth now, because it is so vital. But when it comes to speaking truth, there are very few reporters out there that have the courage to stand not just on their own platform like I do here on the Highwire, but to stand on the platforms of the controlled mainstream media and carefree and with courage and vigor and tenacity, speaking truth to power all around the world. I am such a fan of Lara Logan, and here is the reason why. Take a look at this.
I'm 60 Minutes correspondent Lara Logan.
Joining me now is Lara Logan.
60 Minutes correspondent Lara Logan joins us now.
Lara Logan, CBS News, Baghdad. In the few days since the United Front made their triumphant entry into the city, life has changed dramatically. People have either fled the city or are staying at home in anticipation of the bombing. The soldiers here find bodies dumped like this every day. The killers usually never found. If you want to know how the war is going in Afghanistan, there's no better place to go than the tiny American combat outposts all along the border with Pakistan.
It just feels like this is one big target.
We are one big target here. We're driving right to the Taliban villages.
After 30 minutes of constant fighting, it was over.
Do you believe the war on terror can be won if Osama bin Laden is still alive and if he's still out there?
I think there would be enormous symbolic value in us capturing or killing bin Laden.
I have never done any kind of sycophantic stories with the military. I've always told it like it is.
As much as I'm a good talker, I'm a better listener. So I listen to what the Iraqi people have said to me over the years.
The great thing about covering something over 16 years is that you never forget the way that city was. That gives you a context and it gives you depth to your reporting.
So let's bring in Lara Logan, host of the Fox Nation show Lara Logan Has No Agenda. She has reported extensively, as we all have seen, from the southern border.
I think when we think of cartels, we think of drugs, narcotics, human smuggling, an increasing piece of the pie when it comes to their revenue.
What really most Americans don't understand is that when they see this mass flow of people across the border, what they're looking at has been described to me as the largest form of modern slavery in the world.
A pimp from Tenancingo agreed to speak with us, but we had to meet him in the nearby town of Puebla.
The two girls with him are prostitutes.
Yes.
I mean, like, he owns them?
Yes.
Can you refuse to do this?
No.
So you're a prisoner, really? Yes. What happens to you if you say no, or if you try?
Pues no podemos hacerlo. Nos castigan.
What is punishment?
Pues nos encierran o tenemos que trabajar más.
It's estimated there are more than 40 million human trafficking victims like them worldwide, and close to 50,000 in the US. It's a modern form of slavery that's as evil as the old.
Difficult topic to cover, but something
was
needs
brutal.
to be done about this.
There is a process that, as journalists, that we go through to try as hard as we can to get close to the truth. And the truth speaks for itself.
I have a sense of responsibility and a sense of duty. And I believe that this is something that I was meant to do. And I believe in the importance of doing it. And that's why I keep going back.
I think the worst thing people do in television is simplify everything for themselves so that the process is easier. If you really want to report something worthwhile, you have to absorb every detail that you can physically and mentally and emotionally cope with. And then you have to do your job and make it simple so that people can follow what you're talking about, and that you still, within that simplicity, deliver something that's meaningful.
One of the few reporters on this planet that has not spent her career telling us about the world they want us to believe we live in, but sharing the one that actually exists and what we can do about it. It's my honor to be joined right now by Lara Logan. Lara, thank you.
Dal.
Thank you so much. What an honor.
I love your show, by the way. I
thank
really do. I love it.
Thank you very much. That means a lot. You've been out there. There's so many things that we could talk about. But just to begin with, when we were trying to get celebrities and people involved in the Defeat the Mandates rally, when I found out that you had said yes, I was so excited. So first of all, why? Why did you fly all the way out to California and to decide to be a part of that rally?
Well, because it matters, right? Because this is a moment. It's kind of heavy and depressing. I was watching this show and you made reference to this, right? Which is one of the things I love about you, is that you can read the room. And yes, it start with this great celebration, and then, you get this inside look on what they're trying to do now with COVID, and Shanghai is just devastating. And then it gets really dark with that lunatic, Yuval Harari. Yes. And so when you look at this moment, you can get very bogged down in the depression. You can feel outnumbered. You've been under attack for how many years?
Yeah.
Because you've been onto the vaccines a lot longer than 90% of us, right?
Yeah.
And yet there's people like you in almost every area that were attacked long ago.
Correct.
Dinesh D'Souza is one of the early victims of cancel culture. So was Bernie Kerik, right? We just didn't know it was happening then.
Yeah.
And what I discovered at the march, right, which is what you find when you get out and you live, is, wow, this reaffirmed exactly what I suspected, is that the reason we feel like we're losing is that they're not telling these stories. I said that on stage.
Yeah.
Right? I had no idea what I was going to say, and I was a little stressed about it because I wanted it to mean something. And I don't write canned speeches because I don't believe in that.
Yeah, neither do I.
Right? And so, and it was important. So I listened and I looked around me and I talked to people, and what did I find is like, wow, I cannot believe we don't know this. And it's the same reason I love your show, is that every time I watch, when I get that comprehensive look and understanding, it's a comprehensive overview, but it's built and supported with detail and with evidence. That transparency feature, right, that you have, where people can get the newsletter, I get the newsletter, and they can see the original source documents. John Solomon does that on Just the News as well. And it's really, it's so interesting because people want to know what, I don't know what to trust and I don't know where I can go. And you're Jeremy Paxton, right? Jackson?
Yeah, Jeffrey Jackson. Yeah.
He said, Jeffrey, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
He said it, he said, please get this because there's a lot of work that goes into it. And that's the point. There's a lot of work that goes into this if you do it right.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what you get from watching the show. And so, how does all of that come into my decision? Why am I leaving my kids yet again, working yet again another weekend, not being paid, right? Because none of us going
True,
out there.
good. That's a really good point to make. Everyone on that stage donated their time to be there.
Right, and why am I doing that? It even costs me money, right? Because I'm paying for my transport and to the airport and from the airport and so on and so on. Why am I doing that? I'm doing that because we can either believe the propaganda and be geographically isolated from each other and into our own homes and submit, or we can get out there and find out what is real and what is not real. And this is a defining moment in our history. You heard all of those people talking about the opportunity for a revolution bigger than the Industrial Revolution, right? So you can look at that and say, wow, this is so much bigger than me, I surrender.
Right.
Or you can say to yourself, wow, we also have that opportunity. We also have that chance to define what the future looks like.
Agreed.
And one of the ladies in your video, I love that woman. She talked about the rage of mama bears.
Yeah.
That's what they fear.
Naomi Wolf. Yeah.
They fear us.
Yeah.
They fear us. That's why your life has been hell. For how long, Del?
Well, I wouldn't say, we've been at this, I've been at this since 2015, really, where I got on this topic. I mean, I was working for CBS before that, had a really nice, cushy job. I was challenging things in there too, but not at the level that I am.
Like Cheryl Atkinson.
Right, yes,
Right?
Cheryl's
Challenging
fantastic.
things with vaccines and all that long before anybody else. And, you know, I never even thought about it. I was running off on the battlefield here, there, and everywhere.
Well, let me ask you about that.
hard.
I want to ask you about that because when it comes to media, one of the things I keep reflecting on is, you know, you're on your journey, and I'm asking myself, like, how far ago did I leave the mainstream thought system? I mean, I was in it. Was it always this bad, or do you feel like there's a shift that's happened? And is there any like significant point, or was it just a slow slide away from the truth?
Nothing was a slow slide. First
Okay.
of all, there was no slide. Why? This is the most important, I think, to me, thing for people to understand. This was by design. This is manipulated. This is not how things happen. In the natural world, you know, because we live in the natural world, right? We live in the real world. You can go to California today, right now, and find what we found.
Yeah.
Look at that. Thousands of people
Right.
that maybe we don't agree on everything. Look at Riza Islam, right, on the stage. I'm sure there's things that we would yell and scream at each other about.
Right.
And in fact, Trevor Fitzgibbon, one of the people who worked on the Defeat the Mandates, right? Trevor and I yell and scream at each other about Venezuela, right? And yet we have lost our ability to disagree with each other, but still find common ground because we have been manipulated and pushed into focusing only on what divides us, and not looking at what unites us. Why? Because certain people benefit when we think we're divided and isolated and so on and so on. What does it do? It breaks the human spirit. I think it's so funny that the very man who is talking about Jesus is a made-up story and God doesn't exist and so on, then how are you becoming gods?
Right.
Well, how is this divine? If those things are made up and they're not real, how is this what is it you are becoming?
Right.
Right?
Yeah. You're becoming a fiction?
Exactly.
Right.
You're becoming something fake.
Right.
Right, it is fake.
Right.
It is fake because humans can never be gods.
Right.
Actually.
Right. Yeah.
And in fact, our humanity is godlike because we are made in the image of God.
Yeah.
Right? And what do they want us to believe? We watch all these superhero movies. I love superheroes. Right? I mean, I grew up wanting to be a superhero. Why do you think I ran all over the world trying to help
I
people?
think you are, but you know, I don't know where this is going.
No, I am very aware of my human frailty. Every single day I'm reminded, right? But our human frailty is exactly what makes us superhuman, right? That's the most extraordinary quality of all, is that in a heartbeat, Del, we can choose to give up everything for somebody else.
Yeah.
We can make a decision that is counter every ounce of our DNA and that survival instinct that's built into us. And this is why electric cars can never be programmed to be like humans. This is why AI and machinery will never be human, because how do you predict when our courage is we're going to rise or we're going to fail? We all say as parents, I would give my life for my child, but would you? Would you? Some of us would, and some of us wouldn't. And some of us would give our lives for a child we've never met. We've never met.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what makes us human. It's our frailty and our weakness as much as our strength. It's our fear as much as our courage. Right? It's acting in the presence of fear. Right? That's what real courage is.
Yeah.
You can't make machines that understand this. You can make machines that mimic it, but you know what? They're as fake as Chinese purses.
Yeah.
They're not the real thing. And this is the thing with China and all of these people. They don't create. They mimic and they copy and they steal.
Yeah.
And I'm not dismissing, Chinese creativity, but you have an entire nation that is based on strangling the creativity and the freedom and the life out of every citizen. The Chinese don't build biolabs and medical facilities to save people.
Yeah.
They build bioweapons facilities to kill people and to control them. That's what they build. That's why U.S. intelligence monitors everything they build, right? Every lab that they build has always been monitored. And so how does that relate to what we're doing right now? I believe that as long as we continue, you use the clip of me saying, get off Twitter, get off Facebook, get off Instagram. You cannot sit and whine about being censored and then pay money or contribute money to the very platforms that are censoring you. You heard what Harari said, right? We are the product.
That's right.
Our bodies and our minds. So there is nothing free. My mother, fortunately, was a wise woman who never finished high school, by the way, never graduated from high school. And yet, most of the wisdom that guides me in my life is the wisdom that has been passed down for generations, and much of it came through her. She said there's nothing free. If there's something free, it's like if you're sitting at a poker game and you're wondering who the mark is, you're the mark.
Right.
We're playing poker right now.
Yeah.
This is a poker game. It's a great analogy because there is no greater lie than the Great Reset.
Right.
There is no greater lie than social justice. This isn't about justice for anybody, no matter what the color of your skin is, no matter how you've been disenfranchised, or whatever wrongs have been committed against you. This isn't about bringing justice to you. This is about obliterating all forms of justice.
It's almost reverse. I mean, so much of this is like reverse psychology. I think the most insidious part of this pandemic is how they use empathy, the human empathy. Take care of your neighbor. The reason you need to take this product that's going to make us billions of dollars is you need to protect your neighbor. And then in the end, oh, snap, sorry, actually, you didn't protect anybody. You're barely protecting yourself, but it certainly isn't stopping infection, all these things. But they play on our emotional space, yet in the back rooms, they really don't care about our humanity. They don't care. I mean, as he's saying, we are all just useless bodies, and more and more,
useless,
it looks.
worthless, by the way.
They just see us as we're just literally just numbers. We're just numbers. How many numbers do we have to reduce to get to this final end, and all of those things in the work that you're doing? And I just feel when I think about humanity, and one of the issues that's really got us, another one that just gets us so divided is the border right now. You've got Abbott is shipping busloads of, he's being forced to have these people come across the border. The borders are, becoming porous and wide open. He's shipping human beings to Washington, D.C. and letting them out there. We're seeing this all in the news. We hear about drug trafficking. We hear about human trafficking. And all of this is just getting lost. And don't you care about those children at the border? And, and I just wonder, when we see these videos, it doesn't seem that they do care. There's something else going on. How does this all connect together?
Well, Yuval Noah Harari just told you they don't care. He just said, what are we going to do with all these useless, worthless people? What he's telling you is they're in our way, right? You're standing in our way. And so this is why I love watching your show. This is why I love watching you and talking to you, because you just went straight to the heart of one of the most important parts of this, right? They play on our emotions. It is actually deception, because they're using emotion to mask their real agenda, right? And their true intent. So, and this is a very common tactic that once you learn to recognize it, you will see it everywhere. For example, gun control. There is no conversation about the Second Amendment that is ever going to sound wise and smart and convincing when you're sitting next to a mother or a father who just lost their child in Sandy Hook, right? In a shooting, a school shooting. There is no conversation about the border that you're ever going to win if you're arguing about whether people deserve a second chance or a chance at a better life, or, you know, this mother and her children, you know, are good people or bad people, right?
Right.
You're never going to win that argument. That's why they frame all of these issues in those terms. And the number one thing that you will read over and over again, you can go to read Momentum, the organization that gives you the framework for how to create your own movement, right? You can go to the Obama Foundation and see the rules for community policing and look at the Safe Cities Initiative at the United Nations. You can go literally to Indivisible, the political arm of the Soros Foundation that is using to get people into city councils and school boards and, you know, and so on and so on. You can go to, I mean, literally one organization after another, their policies on gun control. And what do they emphasize over and over and over again? Focus on the emotional argument, do not address the substance. It's the same with COVID, because we cannot argue with the emotion. Nobody is talking, for example, when that evil, I don't know, person from Harari, when he says, how are we going to deal with these worthless, useless people? We're going to deal with it. The only thing I can think of, gee, let me see, is video games and drugs. Well, how does that relate to what we're talking about?
Yeah.
You're bringing us to the southern border. This is how it relates. So in the first 6 months of the last fiscal year, right? Fiscal years run October to October. So not this fiscal year that we're still in, but last year. In the first 6 months, because it's winter normally, October, right?
Yeah.
Through the winter months, numbers on the border are typically low. Last year was a record. It was 330,000, right? Around about.
Yeah.
Guess what it is for this year?
I have no idea.
Already, in the first 6 months of this fiscal year. These are
It should be 150,000 if we're on track with the really bad year we just had.
So for the first 6 months, it is 1 million. It's over
1 million.
It's over 1 million. And that's apprehensions. Why is that significant? Well, because when you open the border like that and you give up almost entirely on security, you're opening that border for everything. We can argue good, bad. I would say to you that's a trap. It's a political and emotional trap, because the reality is there are good people coming over the border. But behind that, there is a lot of bad people. And at the same time, last year, we had overdose deaths in this country reach over 100,000. They're at 104,000. And we hear how much about it? Nothing.
Yeah.
The vast majority of those overdose deaths are opioids. And now word is getting out about fentanyl. But fentanyl, right, is the deadliest street drug in history of any country anywhere on the globe. And where did it come from? Well, a Belgian pharmacist is the one who created it in the late 1960s, right?
Yeah.
It's used in our hospitals. It's a great drug for surgery because it works very quickly. You go way up and you come down really quickly. And that's what doctors want for surgery, right? Stem the pain. Well, how did we get this problem? Guess where it came from? The same thing you were just talking about, the Chinese. How did they get it? Well, because we outsourced all of our manufacturing capability to China. So for all those pharmaceutical companies, thank you, Big Pharma, because anyone who knows anything about the Chinese Communist Party knows that when you do business in China, they steal everything. They've got Chinese Communist Party people that have to be in your workplace, in your offices, stealing absolutely everything. And then what do all the tech companies do? You know, they own an unlimited worldwide perpetual copyright of everything that you do. So when you're emailing or when you're texting or when you're storing it on your cloud, they own all of that, right? Every single part of it, the hardware, the software, they're giving it to the Chinese in order to have permission to operate there, in order to make a lot of money out of you. So the Chinese took the analogs for fentanyl from our pharmaceutical companies. They figured out what's the deadliest thing we can do, and they started by mailing it to the US. It was a street drug. It was a mail order drug initially. and then they farmed it out to the Mexican cartels. So the DEA is doing busts in Mexico, and who are they arresting in Sinaloa? They're arresting Chinese pharmacists, Chinese chemists. They've got their kids in American universities learning how to be pharmacists and chemists and scientists and so on and so on. Why? So they can make narcotics in laboratories that are super cheap, right? Super easy to mass produce, can be made in, if you've got an apartment building, you can put 50 labs inside apartments. You can't see it from the air. There's no more poppy fields, right? What did the DA used to be able to do? Fly over, see the crops of the poppies and everything, know what opium was going to be like, know what cocaine was going to be like. And guess what? Like everything else, not the food that they make in factories, but the stuff that grows in the ground, you know, smoked marijuana, whatever. Yeah, that was, depending on who you were, that could have bad effects. Nothing like the faces of meth or fentanyl, because these are chemical products made in factories, right?
Yeah.
And they're killing, who are they killing? They're not just killing drug addicts and people that have got, you know, that have destroyed, obliterated their lives. DEA agents today are literally the PTSD, the suicides, the resignations, same for Border Patrol. These things are through the roof, because what are they doing? The DEA agents are going into bedrooms in suburbs and they're picking your children and my children and other people's children, 12, 13, 14-year-old kids who think they're buying an Oxy, who think they're buying a Xanax, who think they're buying an Adderall, and what are they buying? A fake pill. It doesn't have any of the ingredients of those pills, but it has baby formula and fentanyl in it. And now they're mixing it into every other drug. So the DEA just put out a law enforcement bulletin, right? It's called a BOLO, warning of a mass overdose events. They've invented a new term. We've got so many overdoses. The Drug Enforcement Agency has invented a new term to cover it, and we don't hear about it in the media.
Right.
Because these are the drugs that Yuval Noah Harari and all of his people are making sure reach our kids and reach all of us, right? Mass overdose events, because there were 29 people who died of cocaine overdoses in 5 separate incidents. This is not just cocaine. This is cocaine mixed with fentanyl. A DEA agent told me in San Diego, we're sending our informants out trying to find, you know, pure heroin. We can't find pure heroin. Do you know what people are doing now? You know what they're telling our kids to do? Number one, they're putting Narcan in our schools. Every firefighter, every police station, and school nurses, they're doing public service announcements, teaching people how to use it. Narcan is a medication that has saved countless lives because it reverses the opioid overdose. But this is not fixing the drug problem. This is literally, addicts are taping it. One DEA agent in Boston told me they find it taped to the walls, right, with instructions on how to administer it for their kids or whoever happens to find them. And what they're not telling you is, as long as the brain is deprived of oxygen, any doctor will confirm this, the longer you are without oxygen, even when you come back from that, you may not be getting, depending on how long, you may not be getting complete brain function back. And guess what? I went to San Francisco. I went to Oakland. I was in the homeless camps talking to people. I was trying to find people to interview, right?
Yeah.
I went to camp after camp after camp. And I was like, I cannot in good conscience put these people on television. Their brains have been obliterated by these chemicals and by some of them from the overdoses that they come back from without proper brain function. So don't you wonder how everything, and now suddenly we have an epidemic of mentally ill people? Where do all these mentally ill people come
and
from?
homeless. I mean, just the homeless, just talking about that. Like, I just
lot of
think
it is
about,
coming from the
you know, I
drugs.
did a reality show some time back before, you know, I was trying to get launched into a TV career with the homeless. And mostly it was alcoholism, and you would see some drug use. But it just wasn't what we see now. Like, I mean, I saw a shanty town when I was in Haiti after the earthquake. Like, I was there reporting for the Doctor's Television Show, and I was like, my God, can you imagine living like this? And now in Austin, Texas, in San Francisco, in downtown LA, like 1 block away from where we had that rally, you're starting to see American shanty towns. And I'm just like, what is this? And we're being told, oh, just like the virus, just learn to live with it. Just keep going as you are. As more and more people are, and as you said, they're not healthy. These are not healthy people. This isn't someone that's just, lost their job. There is a serious problem going on here, and no one wants to deal with it. All right, last, because we could go on all day. One of the things,
what I would say to you about that, that's exactly how they want us. Because know what those people are not doing? They're not joining the military.
Right.
They're not writing letters to Congress, right?
True.
They are not paying taxes, right? They are not raising like stable nuclear families. Families are breaking up. And who's the attack on? The nuclear family. Look at the Atlantic Monthly magazine. If you want a blueprint, right, go to the Brookings Institute and the Atlantic Monthly and, people like the Daily Beast for the more immediate one. And you can see the roadmap for what they're destroying and for the propaganda.
When we look at all of those things, the destruction of the family, that we just won a lawsuit in Washington, D.C., where they tried to have 11-year-olds, where they actually passed the law that 11-year-old could get a vaccine. And the law actually mandated the doctor had to lie to the parents to give them a fake vaccine record. The school had to lie and give a fake school record. And the insurance company had to lie to the parents to give them a fake billing, record. Luckily, the judge did say you're breaking federal law. And they want to pass the same law in Los Angeles. When we have politicians wanting to break laws, you're in a shocking and scary moment.
Not wanting to, they are breaking
laws. True. And I say, people say all these laws being broken. They're only broken if we don't stand up for them, because we're going to get what we accept. As long as we accept it, that law's gone. Like, that right is gone. We've accepted it.
That's the only way they win, if we accept it.
That's right.
Because acceptance is the same as surrender. It's the same as giving up. It's the same as going on your knees and groveling in the dirt. And you know what it's the same as? Being on Facebook and all these platforms and paying them, inflating their bank accounts, right? That's what we're doing.
Making them billionaires. They're going to buy your next politician. Trillionaires buy your next politicians, buy your next right to censor you. We are funding all that. We're voting with our dollars. One of the issues that I don't really go near very often, probably because I cannot handle it emotionally. Like, I've said, I've gone to some of the events that you've hosted, and my wife Lee will go, and I was like, I'm so deep in this vaccine issue, I can't look at an issue that I just feel powerless against. And for me, that it's human trafficking. It's somewhere that you've been very focused. There's so much of me that wants to say it doesn't exist. I think so many of us just want to say that it can't possibly be that bad or whatever, because it truly is, it's without a doubt evil. Anything else, you can somehow excuse it as greed. Well, they're just greedy. They're trying to make money off the drugs. I mean, there's ways out. When it comes to human trafficking, there is no way to say that these are human beings, at least to me, that this isn't some form of evil. You're deep in it. When we look at leaders that are starting to lose track of humanity, or a concern for the human body or the species itself, is that mirrored in the work that you're doing? I mean, how deep does it go? How dark is this world getting that in the places that you're diving into?
Well, we just had a woman elected to the Supreme Court who advocates for pedophiles over the victims. Right? She says, oh, the laws are outdated. It's not fair to sanction them like that, because with digital technology, you're able to get many more pictures of kids than you would before. But that means many more children in those pictures have been subjected to that form of abuse, right? And so I'm not okay with that. I mean, for me, it's very, very simple. I'm working with someone, and I can't say too much about it yet, but I'm working with someone to create a platform that doesn't allow porn or trafficking of any kind. It's why I got off Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. And yes, I still have, I'll still get sent something and I'll go on there and read it and whatever. So there's a process. You can't just go cold turkey if you like. I'm trying to to break those bonds, but I've broken them like 98%. And what I can tell you is this: you played a little clip there, right, of the girls that I was interviewing in a town just outside of a town in Mexico called Tenancingo. This is an entire town that is built on generations of sex trafficking. I interviewed a trafficker who told me he was 12 when he first went with his father and his grandfather to a very poor area of Mexico, and they bought a whole bunch of girls, and they have a festival once a year where they literally take all the new girls and they do this, they parade them around town, the whole town comes out, and men get to select the new virgins who are they're going to rape that night. And that was one of the worst things that I have ever sat through in my life. Because at a certain point, I realized I'm sitting with these two young girls. One was 17 and one was 22. The 17-year-old had been sold when she was 12, and the 22-year-old had been sold when she was, I think, 12 or 13. I can't quite remember. And what I realized in that moment, and I felt disgusting, was that everything I was talking to them about was going to happen that night. And it was still going to happen the next day. And I couldn't help them. I couldn't help them. And I became a journalist because I believe that when people know the truth, they do the right thing. And I know that's true. And I had to sit there. And I realized for the first time, I've been a journalist for 35 years, but I realized for the first time that usually when I'm talking to people, they've been rescued from the Islamic State, or they've survived the bombing or the massacre or whatever, because they're alive to speak to me. Or it's the parent who's lost a child who's talking to me. But then, there in that moment, these two girls are looking at me, and I can see in their eyes, and especially the older girl, I mean, she was screaming with every part of her body, "Help me." And I said to the trafficker, because we interviewed them separately, I said to him during his interview, I said, there might be people when they see this that want to help and have resources, have money. If these girls, if someone wanted to buy them, how much would they be? And he laughed at me. And I said, why are you laughing? I mean, how much? And he said, what are you going to give me? What are they going to give? They want to pay $20,000, $30,000. He said, I can make that in a month. He said, every month, month after month, year after year. What are you going to pay me that's going to make more money than that? And that's when you realize every person that is trafficked, they regard them that way. They're making that money. They're working 7 days a week. They don't get time. When they're sick, they don't get to lie in bed, right? They have to go out and work again. And it never ends for them. So you've taken, and for all these people who think, everyone coming to the United States wants to come here, I asked those two girls, what about the United States? What about America? Would you want to come to America? And they both said no. I said, why not? It's not the answer I expected.
Yeah.
And they said, the girls who go there, they never come back. Look at these girls. They're thinking, wow, the girls who go there, they go to a bad place because they never come back from. And you start to realize they lose their education because they never go to school again. They lose their families, right? They lose their freedom. They lose their hope. They lose their dreams. They never get married. They lose a normal life. They lose their everything. And now you're going to take their identity. They identify as Mexican or Guatemalan or whatever it is. And you're going to put them in a foreign country where they don't speak the language. And you're going, and they don't have no way. They don't know how to get home. They have no way of
and I mean,
how
I
to
think,
get home.
and it's this form of Stockholm syndrome, right? They're being told anything out there, you don't want to leave. It's
Oh,
a
no,
dangerous
it's the
world out
drugs.
there. It's the drugs.
They don't believe on their own. Some of them, of course, do. But mostly what happens to them is they get fed, they get turned into drug addicts. Because how else do you get people to live with the terrible things that they have to do night after night? I mean, and I asked them, are you going to be raped tonight again? And they said, yes, of course. And you know what the worst part of the whole interview was for me? Like the part where my throat closed and I couldn't even talk anymore. Both of those girls told me the stories of how they were sold, what happened that day. They remembered every detail, right? And for both of them, it was their mother who was the one who came to them and said, you have to do this for us and for the family and for your brothers and sisters and everything. So there was that real sense of betrayal for them. But when I asked them if there was one thing in the world, if you were free, and this was over, what would be the only thing in the world, the most important thing in the world to you? What would you want more than anything else? They both said, to see my mother. And you know, you talk about mama bears raging. That's why. That's why, because they can take everything from us, but they cannot take that bond that mothers and fathers have with their children, with your blood, that love that you have, that is a love for every child. It doesn't even matter if it's not my child. My house is a refuge for children. It's a place for children. I don't want my kids going to someone else's house every weekend. I want all the kids at my house. My husband sometimes says to me, you know, even when I'm not home, I'm traveling to work, he's like, do you realize we have like 22 children here? Like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you, right? I'm going, and that is not just me. That's how every decent person, people all over the world feel that way. We'll fight for each other's children. We won't just fight for our children. That's why there are people who don't even have children who are saying, you know, whose children are maybe growing up, who are fighting for their grandchildren. It's why every single person at that march who I talked to, what did they say? I am doing this because I know my time is done. I mean, Dal, I'm 51. How old are you now?
Just right there. But actually, I turn 52 tomorrow. I guess it's tomorrow.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. It's yeah.
But what we live, our children live in a world. This is what the prophet, Lebanese philosopher Khalil Gibran said. They live in a world we cannot enter, not even in our dreams. And that world is tomorrow, right? That's the future. But you know what we know? We know that the Spartans fought for freedom. When was that? How many years ago was that? The enduring things don't change. There's the commandments that we get from God, right? There's the natural laws and principles that come from God that we then have taken, especially in this country, and made into laws, right? Where we say this is how we're going to live. And those things, thou shalt not kill, they don't change. They don't change. They survive. This is why Shakespeare is relevant today. Right? What did Wordsworth warn us against? Wordsworth, as a poet and a wordsmith, warned us against emotion without meaning and substance. And what do we have today? We have emotion without meaning and substance. They figured out how to manipulate us, give us all the emotion, just pour the emotion at us without any of the meaning and the substance. And what does it become? Meaningless. It becomes meaningless because we are created in a balance and a whole, right? Now it's no fat, then it's keto this, and no, everything we need to survive is in the natural world. Because we survived. How do we know that? Because how long did humans survive?
We're still here.
Before we had factories giving us
before we had
bars.
vaccines, before we had drugs, before we had smoothies, we were here.
Everything we needed to survive.
Let me ask you this
world.
final question. Why are you doing it? I mean, when you do these reports, like you're out there, I know it hasn't been great for your career because you push the envelope. I don't even have to ask you about it. I know you've pushed the envelope too far for mainstream. You hold on like you're in there, but 60 Minutes, Fox, you've worked for the best of them. You've challenged all of them. But when you do these stories, when you tell this truth, what is your hope that these cameras, that it's going to go into these cameras, on the other side of these cameras, out there in the world, in your mind, what is the result? How does it make a difference?
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I don't control what happens out there. That's not my job. It's not my purpose. I never think about that, ever. My entire reason for being is to understand and figure out the truth and put it in a form and in a way. I am happiest when I am, what I do best is when I am the vehicle for something and someone else. I'm taking you into this person's life. I'm taking you onto a journey to a place you haven't been. That's what made 60 Minutes so great. I wanted to vomit. Literally, I wanted to vomit when I saw Harari, Yuval Noah Harari on 60 Minutes. I wanted to vomit and cry at the same time, because here you've taken something so great, and what did you do with it? You had the opportunity to do something that really mattered, to look that evil, horrible man in the eyes and really make that interview count.
Yeah.
And did you? Did you do that? Because there's a lot resting on this moment. So what
I thought the same thing. I was watching, like, I think is it Anderson Cooper says, like, what are you doing sitting there? Like, what? Oh, okay. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Like, no challenging question. No, like, oh, all right, well, if you're going to go there, let me throw some stuff at you. Like, it's like, la-da-da, everyone, we're all down with it. I mean, it's crazy. I'm thinking, what is going, can you imagine? I mean, I want to be that interviewer. I mean, I know you want to sit across from that guy.
Oh.
I mean, I'd love to sit across. Like, let's have this out.
You know, and that's exactly the point, right? Is that where is that skepticism? Where is that critical thinking? Where is that real journalism? Where is the balance of reporting? It's just, it's extraordinary to me that we've reached that point. I listened to there's a great YouTuber out there, D'Angelo Wallace. He's a young black kid, and he does an hour-long takedown on the moment Shane Dawson's career ended. And I don't even know if his career has ended.
Right.
And if you don't follow all of this, look up that video.
Okay.
I posted it. This is the moment that I realized, okay, I got to get off these platforms. Because he breaks down. This guy is sitting, you listen to the clips of him being interviewed by all these people, talking about a new thing, zoophilia, not new, but a new term, which is bestiality.
Right.
I mean, it's not just all the transhumanism, and pedophilia and so on. This guy's talking about sex with animals.
Right.
And the co-hosts on these shows are laughing. They're laughing along, you know, with him. He talks about flipping his cat over and blah, blah, blah. You don't even want to hear it. It makes you want to vomit. Why did I listen to it? Because my son's the one who told me about it. He heard me talking about the USA Today Life article saying not all pedophiles, you know, rape children, and not all rapists and sexual abusers are pedophiles. This is part of this normalizing.
Sure, let's normalize it.
Pedophilia, right?
Man, I can't tell you how I predicted that coming years ago. You just made me reflect on it with a friend. I said, you will see a day when they normalize these things.
So my son says, oh, Mom, no, you know, when I hang up the phone, he's like, oh, it's not just kids, it's animals too. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And he shows me this video. And I realized, you know what? This is the moment where it absolutely ends. I am not going to be part of this. I don't care, you know, if I never make any money, right? I'm going to figure it out. I don't care if, I mean, I'm working 7 days a week. Yeah. I'm sure you are too, and have been year after year after year. And I don't make a fraction of what I ever made. In fact, I don't even have an income and an employer, stable income to speak of yet. And I just tell my kids, I'm hiring myself so that nobody can fire me again. But what I know is, what motivates me is that I was born for this.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I was ever meant to do. I was given a gift. My gift was, you don't ever have to second guess. You don't have to wander. You don't have to take, you know, all these different classes in college and change careers. No, your gift is you were born knowing why you're here. So nobody asked this table why you're a table, right? That's just it. We accept that this is a table. Well, that is what I've accepted from the beginning. I've always wanted to be this. I've always wanted to understand. I've always wanted to see it for myself. And I know when I'm in a village in the middle of nowhere, and I get hold of somebody's hand, and I just listen, and I can promise them nothing. I don't promise them that their lives are going to change when people watch this story. How would I know? I don't even pay attention to that. I'll be honest. That's not a mark for me. I know whether I went out there and I did something that mattered, and I told the truth, and I did it to the best of my ability. And we don't always get it right. We don't, because we don't always know. In fact, we know so little, right? But it's the purpose is that if you hold on to the principles and you remind people, right? You don't just let people say whatever they like on your show. You don't just let them make grand statements. You ask them, well, what do you base that on?
Yeah.
Well, how do you know that? And then you go and look into it yourself.
Yeah.
And you listen to alternative points of view and you try to figure out what the truth is. And it's not a perfect process, but it's a difficult process. And it takes a lot of work. And people know when there's a difference. They can sense it.
Yeah.
Right? And it endures. You've endured, Del, because you were, I mean, what did you do? You used to go there and sit in those meetings at the FDA and just film the hearings. And you would, people said you were lying. And all you did was film the hearing
Showing
and
you
put the
what they
video
said.
out.
This is their words.
And-
I've been fact-checked on videos where I left nothing except the scientists doing their own speaking, showing they said this one day, they said the exact opposite another day, you know, and I just asked, are they lying? And fact-checked.
Kind of
I mean,
like
you
the
know,
hundreds
right,
of people
right.
at the march we were at.
Yeah,
in
hundreds,
LA,
hundreds,
speaking
right? Like
at
that, and those are the fact checkers. They're the ones fact checking us. They can't even add or count.
You want to know one of my favorite Del Bigtree stories?
What's that? I don't know. I don't know. Brace myself. We're live. Let it rip.
I don't think people understand how funny you are. You know, because you're serious, and people say this to me, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're much funnier than I knew. But when you spoke at that one event in Spicewood,
Yeah.
when you told that story about that journalist, remember when you were hospitalized?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember what you said?
I go ahead and say it. I'm
The
not
only
sure.
person more interested in my asshole than me was this journalist writing all these stories about what happened to you.
That's right. Yes, I do remember saying that.
That's what
Did I
I-
actually say that in front of an audience?
Yes, you actually did.
That's what happens when you just, like you said, I don't script it out and like come up with some, you know, cookie cutter script. Well, Laura, you know, you are such a dynamic human being and you represent what, and it's such an honor to have you on the show. And I hope what people are hearing is what it means to follow your guidance, to follow your journey and your destiny. And I think, you know, you answered it perfectly well. And I've said this, people think that I have some plan for the future, see it down the road. And the truth is I'm immensely curious. I am so grateful to all my audience out there that have made this possible, that I can ask whatever questions I want, that I don't have to answer to a pharmaceutical company that's paying my check, that I literally get to go out and ask the questions as I feel them, as I see them, as I'm guided to ask, to meet these people and show them to the world, to show the truth, to show what the WHO is actually saying, to show what, you know, Anthony Fauci and the discrepancies in the science. And people, I've believed it from the beginning. When I started this in a little closet, I said, if we show the truth when no one else is, that may not be everyone in the world. I don't know if that's going to be the biggest audience in the world, but guess what? I know there's an audience that cares about that. And there's an audience truly that cares about what you're doing, and it is so spectacular. You are so courageous. You go into places that I'm not sure that my guidance would ever tell me that I need to be there in the middle of a war zone. You've stood in it, dangerous interviews. I just want to honor you in your integrity and your journey, and in any way, if we can ever help share a story or help bring a focus on some of the work you're doing, please let us know how we can do that.
And same here, I feel the same way. I know, you know, you've been in a war zone of your own. I mean, it's a really lethal war zone, right? When you get into the realm of big pharma and all the rest of it, all that money that is at stake there, all the power players, you know, that it's the same thing. It's kind of like I feel so embarrassed when people will say to me, you know, I've only been raped once, you know. I know it's nothing like what you went through because you were gang raped. It's like, no, I mean, you were raped. Okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. One doesn't cancel each other out. And it's the same thing that I feel here. Every single one of us is a warrior in a sense.
Yes.
And you know, there are people right here in Texas, in my town, who are fighting a battle just on what books are kept in the libraries.
Important battle.
In our schools.
So important.
Yeah, and it's really stunning because they get misrepresented all the time. And
They're being called terrorists by our own government.
Yes, cold terrorists, and not just cold terrorists, prosecuted as terrorists.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, right? There are people sitting in jail right now who have never been convicted in a courtroom.
Yeah.
And they've been there for more than a year.
Yeah.
Those are people from January 6th.
Yeah.
They have been there for more than a year. Julian Assange was dying in Belmarsh and is now going to be extradited,
Yeah.
right? For the crime of exposing the truth. I mean, whether you like him or don't like him, is that what we really think should be happening to Julian Assange?
Yeah.
Is that what we want?
Well, I would think the sooner the better. Let's go ahead and have a public court case. Let's put the video cameras on this and let's see what we all think of what's taking place with these. These things need to be in the public eye. And that's,
Yes.
you know, and I think that that's the key.
They don't want us to know how many people are standing up. There are warriors
that's it.
everywhere.
Agreed.
They say people need to wake up. No, there are millions of people who are awake.
Yep.
We don't hear their stories. You know, any other time, half those people on stage with us in LA
Yeah.
would have been on the cover of magazines and featured on 60 Minutes, and you would have been seeing their stories everywhere. But another form of censorship is omission,
Yep.
right? Omitted from the narrative, like that letter in the LA Times.
Yeah.
Can't we just ignore these
Right.
marches?
Right.
Can't we just ignore them?
Be hard. You can hear it for miles around, but yeah, let's ignore it. Well, you're not allowing, you know, the things you care about to be ignored. Neither am I. And so I just want to thank you for coming in today, taking this time to share with me. It's so inspiring. You are so inspiring. And I truly do. It's clear you're on your destiny. You're doing God's work. You're bringing light to this.
Well, you
and
have a
and a
nice
sense of humor.
studio.
Isn't this
And-
beautiful?
Yeah, and you have a great
Amazing.
team, by the way.
Agreed. The best.
Yeah,
The best.
they did an amazing job in LA.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Del.
Great, Laura. Well, as she said, there's millions of us now, but you know, how do we know it? I think one of the things that when we were looking out at the audience, all the people that wear like the high-wire t-shirts and the hats and everything, and I thought to myself, and I do this when I'm traveling, I'll be wearing my Be Brave hat, and you know, it's a great way to travel. If for any other reason you want to just buy some of the merchandise at our shop, how about just for, if you're out in public, you're deciding, I got to travel, I got to wear this stupid mask, how's someone going to know what I really think when I'm wearing this mask? Well, at least we know each other. You see that high-wire hat, that high-wire shirt in the airport, you go, I don't want to be wearing this mask either. It's a way to connect. So why don't you check out, this is the High-Wire Merchandise Store.
Introducing the all-new Highwire Shop, where you can find your favorite studio gear essentials for everyone in the family.
We're out here